I hear everything, see everything on YouTube.
Oh, okay. All right, well, let's get going. Let's get going. Before you got here, Lane, I was just kind of jumping around a little bit, just going over the official narrative on official narrative and how a lot of it doesn't make sense or is very vague. Um, and that's so there wasn't one spot that we need to pick up from, but I was just kind of bouncing around a little bit. Uh, it seems like even if you miss a couple of days of the news cycle with Charlie Kirk, something new develops. Right? Have you what's the latest development that you saw on Charlie Kirk?
Ninja Turtle came from underground and shot him.
Ninja Turtle. Yeah. Well,
I'm being a little smart, but apparently they're saying there's video and stuff they're showing from a reverse angle. I will say my original thought when I saw the video, the horrible video, was that it seemed like an exit wound based on the. I'm trying to be PC here, by the exit of the blood and how it ejected from his body. It seemed like that was an exit wound.
you think that was an exit wound from here, the front, or the back was the exit wound? What this was the exit wound?
Why? That's what I'm saying. So like obviously looking straight on, the way the flow, it seemed like that was exit. And as you know, exiting has usually a bigger impact than entrance in terms of visual impact and damage. So just that flow looked like it was exited. That was my initial suspicion.
You saw the video where it's kind of close up on his head, and then you see the splatter from the. It looks like splatter, but some people say, "Oh, it's this mic wire." Oh, it's some people that say it's the projectile, which I was like, "Bro, you're not catching that projectile at that frame speed." Like,
Yeah.
And it looked more like a splatter, which would imply that the back of the neck was the exit. That was what I believed for like the first week, was that Charlie Kirk got shot basically from somewhere in the 12 o'clock direction, and then it exited that way. But from what a lot of people are saying now, from the shady alcove shooter, and saying that he got shot from the rear right side, and that's why what we see here is an exit. I think if this was the exit, this would have been way bigger, and we would have saw chunks, not just. And if it was a 30-06, I mean, first of all, it wasn't 30-06, bro. Like, I've shot 30-06, so have you. I know what 30-06 can do to an ammo can, let alone a human neck. Can we just get that out of the way? Like, 30-06 would have blown his head clean off.
Yeah, at that range for sure.
30-06 also has like 3,000 feet per second of force behind it. That force has to go somewhere. And if it doesn't go straight out, then it all has to do something inside of his neck. And that means like a big old explosion, like a watermelon. So if that 30-06 was some kind of specialty caliber or green of ammo, it entered and exited, and that bullet got lost somewhere behind him. But also what tells me that this is more of an entrance wound is we don't see the entrance, we just see now like a red little hole here from where the skin is now re-expanding, and now blood is starting to pour out. I just think that if this was the exit wound, this would have been bigger and much more.
No, yeah. That was my initial suspicion, just seeing that video straight on, in the pattern of the exit. I don't know what we can and can't see on YouTube, but now that you're saying that, maybe it hit right at that point right here and straight through and just see.
Well, the other theories are that he was wearing armor, and one theory is that he actually got shot towards the top of his armor and it ricocheted and went out. And I just want to talk about the armor thing. I don't think he was wearing armor, not hard armor. If he was wearing soft armor, he was only wearing it on the front, because when you see his back, you see his spinal bone come across imprint on the shirt. So no soft armor in the back. If there was only soft armor, it was only in the front. But soft armor is only rated to 357 Magnum, so 30-06 would have ripped right through that soft armor. I just want to do away with that theory. the bigger question is which direction he got shot from, which obviously everybody has their theories on that. I'm more
I think we can say this. It was not a hard shot. That's not a hard shot. Uh, I've seen people like, you got to be a shooter, a sharp shooter. I don't think people realize with rifles, it's actually, in my opinion, some of the least skill needed to shoot.
Don't forget, he was in the prone. He was in an elevated position, and he was roughly 150 yards away. My daughter can make that shot.
That's what I'm saying. I cannot train your daughter. Tell her, put the crosshairs right here, and she's going to hit that shot as long as the gun doesn't jump off, wherever it's sitting.
Especially with no time constraints. I mean, it's not like he was compromised. He was up there all day, and he had time. But let's talk about let's talk about the official narrative rather than kind of going down these theories. The official narrative is that you have a 22-year-old who was radicalized online, who comes from a conservative family, but he himself was probably had more of a liberal thought process, maybe, only because of his transgender roommate, that is a boy transitioning to a girl. And so he was radicalized online. Let's just stop there for a second. If this kid was radicalized online, why is there no social media digital footprint for him other than the Discord chat? I mean, and then they won't even show us the Discord chat where apparently in there, allegedly, he said, yeah, I did it. Well, show us.
Yeah, the text message, and not to jump on you, but that text message screenshot, it didn't look like a normal conversation.
No,
With the, what's it called, epaulets, the 3 dots. They even had that in the screen print.
I said that kind of generation of text message between two people was almost like a beta version of ChatGPT 1, Not 5, not 4, not 3, but it was like a beta version, a testing version of an AI that was trying to simulate a dialogue between two young kids. That was a terrible job. Terrible.
Yeah. I agree.
I hardly believe that two 20-year-olds are speaking like that to each other over text message. I can't even get my 20-year-old to give me a complete sentence. These dudes are over here talking about vehicles, my beloved.
My beloved.
Like they're time travelers from the 50s. Like, come on, man. So the text messenger is way off. What about the note that was destroyed, apparently?
Dude, this whole thing is... I don't want to... You keep bringing great points up, but there's some things I have mental blocks on. So let me get this straight. Months ago, the candidate of the president of the United States, someone climbs on a roof, gets a shot off, whatever. Okay. Lesson learned, right? Lesson learned. Even if you don't have Secret Service security detail, right, I'm going to assume that Jocko Willing's security company, because I think that's who owns it, I think those guys are probably prior service. I don't know what they do. If I had to take a guess, they're probably tier 1, minimum tier 2 dudes. Kawa, I'm sure the immediate area is the security concern. That's obvious. Defense and layers. Someone on that team's got to be going, check these roofs. I don't think this guy laid down, scoped in, and shot in 10 seconds. He probably maneuvered up there like this, a little silhouette peeked itself, got his gun set up, loaded the rounds, or maybe they were loaded, whatever, and took the shot. And that probably took 30 seconds, 40 seconds to a minute. I just have a feeling that and again, I don't know, I haven't been there, but it's not a far area. My eyesight is decent. I feel like I would see some movement up top, especially if I know there's no security plan to have people covering the roof. That's the number one in my exposure that someone would get a shot off. And then obviously my next priority would be immediate someone rushing the stage or pulling a gun out to shoot them in the immediate area. So that's the one thing I haven't been able to get past from a security protocol or defense and layers, personal security. I know a little bit.
That's a whole different topic, and you're right, man. I mean, listen, even the basic infantryman knows that when we establish some kind of base defense, which in this case, let's just use his tent area as the base that we're defending. You would have an inner cordon, which is protecting the immediate base, or in this case, Charlie, and you would have an
Hmm.
outer cordon that is scanning a little further out, scanning high, scanning low, maybe looking at choke points and at any kind of avenues of approach. Why did he have three security personnel with him immediately in his area? Four, in fact, that were on their phones, looking at their watches, not scanning rooftops, turning around at times and putting their back to Charlie. And that's just on the day up. What happens if these guys were Jocko Willink's guys, which I have my own opinions on Jocko Willink, but if Jocko Willink wanted to start a security company, I'd assume that he'd hire some really professional and experienced guys.
Especially the liability if you're covering famous people.
And when you look at these guys, when you look at them, they don't look like young 23, 24-year-old SEALs. They're gray-haired dudes that have some, I've been there, I've done that kind of, stature. And so that's telling me that these guys had experience. They knew what a security perimeter should have looked like. They knew where they should have been looking. They knew that those rooftops would have been a dangerous spot for Charlie, and they would have had something on those rooftops, if not personnel. And they failed. They failed to secure the outer cordon. They completely failed to secure the inner cordon, although the attack didn't really come from inside the base. The attack came from outside outside the crowd in this case. And so, yes, huge security failure, which tells me, look, man, you don't have to be a tier 1, tier 2 guy to understand how to set up a nice security perimeter, decent security perimeter, and make sure that your asset is safe from immediate and further out, potential threats. It almost tells me like, look, if I was a conspiracy theorist, and if you look into Jocko Willink's security company and you look at the actual people that were on this detail, you would almost go down a rabbit hole of were these guys compromised? Did they know about it? Or did they, at the minimum, knew enough to let it happen? So that's a huge stretch, right? That's like column, that's tinfoil stuff. Got it. But at this point, here's the reason why we have to give this some amount of credit, and any other kind of theory some amount of credit, is because of the lack of transparency from the government, from the authorities. It's the lack of information. If this was a 22-year-old shooter, it should have been an open, closed, shut case. 22-year-old, here's his digital footprint, here's his Discord chats, here's his text messages, here's how he got radicalized, and here's his confession. Because that's the other thing, right? At first they said that he confessed to his dad, but then his dad turned him in, but then like he left a note for the roommate, but then he also texted the roommate. Did the roommate know? Did the roommate turn him in? We can't even get a clear answer on that. And if he confessed, then why did he deny all charges?
Mm-hmm.
And if his dad turned him in, then why are you arresting him without proof of evidence? Evidence. If he's denying all charges, wouldn't that mean that you need to find or give to the public the no bullshit evidence that you found? Right? Where's the forensics report on the rifle, on his fingerprints, on those bullet casings, on the screwdriver? Where is his confession? None of this adds up. So when none of this adds up, I'm just going to finish it with this, bro. When none of this adds up, when the official narrative doesn't add up, then guess what? Everybody gets to put their tinfoil hats on at this point and point fingers at people until we use the process of elimination and we say, you know what I mean? And we create a short list of who we think did it. What else are we left with?
Yeah, and I think, and look, I don't think I say we care because we understand our character and who we are as people, but like we're obviously commentating on this because we have questions. And obviously, I think what has it been, a week and a half or whatever long it's been. So we're not trying to be insensitive. We're just trying to look back and say, okay, there's been a stage of grief. I refuse to engage in a conversation to be insulting of anyone in the death of someone, which we're not interested in doing. But now we're at a point, I think, where look, some of the things aren't lining up. There's questions, there's concerns. Some of this stuff isn't making sense. So there's so many directions to go with this because like Candace comes to mind, and all the things she said. I'll be honest with you. I was kind of listening, and she's making good points, but I will tell you, and I know I kind of watched a lot of her episodes. She didn't go to his memorial service. Okay, fair. I don't think she has to do that. I think it's kind of strange if that's as close to a friend as you've claimed. And then two, I don't know. It seems like either there's a concerted effort for her to distance her from him, that they weren't as close as she's made it seem. I know she used to be. I mean, there's categorical evidence that they were close toward TPUSA, the whole nine. But I'm not really sure if they were as close as, or what could be believed. But there's so many directions to go with that. Obviously, the meeting in the Hamptons that she's claiming, and from a few other people I spoke to. I'll tell you the one thing that stood out to me was that most billionaires don't get on Twitter and type 5 paragraphs to defend their position. I thought that was almost like performative. Like you went way out of your way to defend yourself on Twitter, when most people would just grab Bill Ackman. Yeah, like most billionaires, like they don't go on Twitter and defend themselves. They just get their 13 lawyers to go and crush said person with defamation or whatever, if it's not true.
I think the billionaire you're referring to is Bill Ackman, though, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Bill Ackman was apparently the one that also met with Charlie in the Hamptons. And
yeah, that's what I was bringing up, the Hamptons.
The Hamptons meeting was one of the last kind of interventions of Charlie Kirk. I think that's where they realized that Charlie Kirk is not to be controlled and told what to do. And that's his words. Those are his words, because he did mention in one of his last episodes that the more they come down on me, the more they try to make me out to be the bad guy, the more I'm going to talk about it, the more I'm going to investigate. The more, you know what I mean? So he was not afraid to say what he wanted to say. And they realized that he's not going to change his mind. He's not going to change what he's talking about. And I think the Hamptons was like a last-ditch intervention to say, hey, man, cool it on these topics. But I think by the time it got to the Hamptons lane, the damage was done, because it all kind of, in my research, it all kind of started with his debates when he went to Oxford and all these other Ivy League schools, and he got the questions about Palestine, Israel, AIPAC, and all those hot topic issues, which he basically just shut down. He shut those. Every time he got a question like that in one of those debates, he shut it down. And I think that kind of got his brain churning a little bit, where he started doing his own research, because if you look at him coming back from those debates, especially the ones overseas in the UK, and he comes back from those debates, he starts to speak a little bit differently on his podcasts. And he's not like saying stuff against Israel, but he's questioning some things. How much control and influence does AIPAC have over our government, over our politics? How much of Israel's bidding do we actually do? And it got to a place where Charlie Kirk, of all people, said that he thinks Israel is committing genocide and ethnic cleansing in Gaza, and that's a huge thing to say, coming from Charlie Kirk.
I think you just said a few things. I think the first thing, I don't know if you remember, we haven't done an episode in a while, but I think I said something to the extent of, I don't care where you sit on the issue, something that shocks your conscience and makes you consider, hey, whatever this is, it doesn't feel right. That's what I think was happening with him, because I think he wasn't necessarily verbally taking another side or challenging, but I think we all know there's a topic you can't broach in our society today, or you'll be labeled some word, a term saying that you're anti this and that. But why I believe some of this Hampton stuff is because the day after he went to Megyn Kelly's podcast, and he didn't bring it up, but it was almost as if he had told her already, and she cued it, allegedly. I'm not saying that happened. I'm not trying to get sued by Megyn Kelly, but she literally says, hey, and I don't think it's fair that you're getting criticized now and being called an anti-Semite. And then literally makes a couple of he's always made some awkward facial expressions. He's a little quirky, and he kind of goes, Yeah, and I don't appreciate it. I'm not really sure me, who's been the biggest fan and supporter of Israel, and he goes on, but he's talking how he's starting to get pressure and being called names and how dare you and you're an anti-Semite and all this other stuff. You're being anti-Semitic.
He's getting
Um,
text
it was
messages about her from them.
Yeah. So it was just unique there. Obviously, there was speculation on the Tucker Carlson inclusion of AmeriFest or whatever it's called, America Fest, the previous year, and how Tucker got up there and obviously challenged some status quo stances that you can't publicly say if you're famous. So a lot of the Megyn Kelly interview, though, almost makes me, not on a conspiracy theory level. It literally makes me believe the accusations of what happened in the Hamptons, or at least speculations, because why would he go on Megyn Kelly the next day and be distraught about why he's being picked on or name called of not being a supporter of Israel?
Yeah, yeah, and I think the America Fest was a big one too, a big
Yeah.
no-no, because look at who we had on stage, people that loved and supported Israel at one point, who at some point all kind of turned, and did a 180. Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly, David Smith. Not David Smith was never really about Israel, but he's an American Israeli Jew who is also, advocates for Palestine, and so he's a huge person. But that entire panel were people who weren't exactly pro-Palestine, but there was people who weren't exactly pro-Israel either. And then the cherry on top of that was the Tucker Carlson solo speech that he got up there, and he really started bringing the heat onto AIPAC.
Yeah.
Like that. And I think that really pissed off, Charlie's, partners and financiers of TPUSA. And I feel like because a lot of those financiers, like Bill Ackman, are Israeli and Zionists themselves, they feel like this is an attack on Israel. This is, our own guy who we paid a lot of money and who we propped up over the years is now kind of stabbing us in the back. It's betrayal, you know. Oh, and don't forget, he's not just some ordinary guy. This is a man who's 31 years old and has the attention and the influence of all of America's conservative youth in his hands.
Yeah, and it's again, all those people you just named. I think most of them, if you go back in time, have supported the response slash retaliation to an extent of Israel for that day.
Right.
However, I don't care how big of a supporter you are of anything. At some point, the human element takes shape on one's heart, hopefully, and you say, "Hey, this shocks my conscience. I think we've accomplished or we have achieved said response. Now it's a bit extra." And I'm being very delicate with my words, but I think you get what I'm saying. Um, and yeah, it's kind of crazy to see. And to your point, I also think it was said that Tucker was going to be in the next fest, because they had told him they didn't want to include him or something, or they speculated that they didn't want Tucker to be at the next year one, and apparently he refused to remove him from the lineup
They didn't want him to be part of the next year.
of the next America Fest, whatever it's called, and apparently he didn't refuse.
Interesting. Well, hey, I think at this point it's like what I think led up to the day of is that you had, I don't want to call him a kid. He's 31. I'm 47.
Mm-hmm.
Seems like a kid to me, but he's not. He's a grown man. But for someone who's barely 31 years old to start an organization that was as influential and as, depending on your outlooks, positive or negative, in American society, in our youth, in our campuses, in schools, to start that from the age of I forget, he was like 16, 17, I think, when TPUSA got started. But even before TPUSA, he was involved in a lot of this kind of political activism, for youth. And I forget the name of the organization he was in before, when he was just like 12 or 13. But he's been doing this for a long time. He's been doing it since he's a child. I mean, some could say that because of who his parents were, that he was almost groomed to be in this kind of leadership position. Some could almost say that because of how he carried himself from a young age, his confidence, his ability to articulate that they saw potential in him, and whoever helped him start TPUSA, which were people like Bill Ackman and a lot of kind of pro-Israel people with the money to prop him up for 17 years, and for him to build TPUSA into what it is today. He, let's just say he was going places. He, to me, would have been a future presidential candidate.
Mm-hmm.
And if he had America's youth kind of in his hands, or if he was in their ear at this age, imagine him 20 years from now when he's 50 and he's kind of like prime time. I mean, and imagine his influence in America had he continued to speak not against a certain entity, but just the truth. Because in the end, he was just speaking the truth. And him and I didn't agree on everything. I mean, we disagreed on his outlook of Islam, Muslims in general, and then some of the other smaller kind of topics that are not as important to me. But I held him accountable for his stuff on Islamophobia and him smearing that. But I was very respectful towards him, even because I agreed with him on like 95% of everything else. And I think that he would have been a really good person had he lived and carried out, kind of his vision of what TPUSA is. But now that he's gone, the biggest question for me is, where does TPUSA go from here? Because now we have his wife at the helm.
Yeah, and this is a good comment. I don't want to. I want to follow that up. But someone just said, I'm confused about where his parents or people from the past are giving condolences. That's actually a good point. I thought the same. It's like the whole memorial, no interviews, not even him being transferred to Arizona, the funeral home, any of that. There was never a capture, unless I just didn't catch it and I could have missed it. But like coming off of Air Force Two, the casket being moved to the thing where JD Vance got in front of it. But that's a good point, Tinks. I've thought the same. But in response to what you just said, Cal, I think, yeah, exactly. I wanted to peel, and I'm not going to revisit or agree or disagree with what I think you provided a good synopsis, if you will, of his life. And I want to tease out the word hate speech, or the phrase. And I think the slow maturation of what that word means and how it was like this seed we put in our society, I don't know, 12, 13, 14. I'm guessing, I can't remember specifically, somewhere between maybe 12 to 16, somewhere in there. The second, and I'm only referencing this for time frame, I'm not accusing him of this, but the second administration of Barack Obama, I think if I go there leading into 16 of Trump, I believe that's when Don't Ask, Don't Tell got repealed, same-sex marriage, all these things, all these things, great, whatever. But when people started with like, well, that's hate speech, that, that's, well, is it hate speech, or is it I'm saying something or I believe in something that you don't agree with? So if someone says that I believe in a traditional marriage between a man and a woman, I don't believe in this. You don't have to agree with that, but I don't know if that's hate speech. There used to be like anti-homosexual or anti-gay speech, and then then there was like anti-trans or transphobia. All true, by the way. Racism, racist. There are racists in this world. There are people that have racism, and there's, but none of that equals, at least in our country, death or I don't agree with you. So the term fascist keeps getting thrown around. I'll tell you, the media, when Trump got elected, for everything he's not, personality-wise, character, all these things, he's the fascist, an existential, I can't even say the word, threat to our democracy, and he's the new modern-day Hitler, and look at the similarities. And it's like, guys, there are people who are unwell who listen to this stuff, and they believe it. They're like, yeah, this guy's the Antichrist. This guy is the fascist. He's the next modern day Hitler. And it's like, it's not. I don't want to say it doesn't surprise me, but I'm not shocked as we've done over the last going on 10 years now. Demonize the human that people don't like, and I've always said rightfully and defensively. So if you don't like him for your reasons, fine. But when you take it to the next step, like do we need to peel the history books open to say what Hitler did and what he was about? Do we have to refresh people? And then when people are like, well, yeah, but it's a simulator previous to when he carried out, what he did. Okay, but do we really believe that Trump's going to take the military and kill half of America? Do we believe that? I don't believe that. So I don't know. It's not shocking to see that people have slowly and progressively gotten more divided. To say the most salacious things or most emotionally charged thing is like, cow is the worst thing. Think about the worst word I can think of. You're my enemy, therefore you're this. I disagree with the four things you said. I can't tell you what I agree with you because I haven't talked to you long enough, but because you on the other side of the aisle or thought process or ideology, you and I can't discuss. We're enemies when quite frankly, if we did sit down and talk, we probably would discover we agree with like anybody, we agree on a lot more things than we think we do. But with the divisive nature and how our country is split with politics and everything else, it's just kind of it's bothersome to me that anyone, whether you didn't like Charlie Kirk or if you did like him, that you would be okay or say, well, he had it coming, or things, or these different sentiments that we've seen shared on social media, of
Right.
all which all these people look like batshit cases. None of them look like normal humans, whether they're celebrating a death. And again, people's brought up the senator or congressional woman from Minnesota. I would argue, I'm not really sure the comparison there. That's horrible too. Someone lost their life. I'm not really sure if people are like, well, I didn't see you guys care about this politician from Minnesota. It's like, well, I didn't say I didn't care,
Those
but
two politicians.
yeah, this person was more, not say more famous, but they're more nationally famous. And I guarantee you, no one outside of Minnesota knew of those two politicians unless you interacted. But if you give me the case, I go, that's sad. That's horrible. There was no Republicans anywhere dancing on their grave saying they had it coming because they voted a certain way or whatever. So yeah, I don't know. I don't want to be divisive here, but there's just at some point at 41 years old, I just can't engage in stupidity and a mentality of where, one side screaming violence comes from one side, the other side's like, oh, y'all do it too. Well, yeah, violence is everywhere. Um, but to compare this or to celebrate someone being dead, it's just I feel like we're at a sad state where like human civility and some kind of class has just lost its way.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the celebrating of someone's death is pretty vile. Pretty vile. And especially since you didn't know him, especially since he didn't really do anything to you, just because you don't agree with his words, that's pretty vile. I want to go back to really quick to Tinks. Tinks, I think you made a great point earlier, and then Lane, I want to address what you said really quick. The memorial service in itself was weird, to say the least. It looked more like a Super Bowl halftime show, WWE event with fireworks. Like, why are you wearing white and why are you all blinged out? I mean, this was pretty much the funeral service for the public on because, they're not going to show the actual funeral service. I don't even think he's in the ground yet, to be honest. Uh, but you're coming out to fireworks. You're you're allowing the president of the United States to speak at the memorial service for your husband, and he uses that opportunity to politicize things. What's that little weasel's name? The bald headed dude
Which
that
which one?
the bald headed dude that's like, you are nothing, you will be nothing at the memorial service. This guy's making a World War II German Nazi speech at the memorial service for Charlie Kirk. Goebbels, his speech was reference to Goebbels. Look up Goebbels, Stephen Miller.
Oh, Stephen Miller.
Thank you. Stephen Miller, this weasel comes out here talking about you are nothing, you will be nothing. Bro, this is a memorial service. This is not a time for you to stand in your soapbox and come down on people, or talk your evil shit. But they all did that. Where was his parents? Where was his best friends from college? Where was his best man from his wedding? Where was, any of his siblings or cousins, family members? Did anybody want to speak about Charlie, or did everybody want to just talk about themselves and how great? It basically to me looked like it was an RNC convention.
Well, there was a reference made, Kawa, and they said Charlie said. So I don't know if this is true, but he said if they could ever do a Trump rally with the word of Christ or the Spirit of God together is what you would get, and they said that that's what they got that day. And it's not far off, like I say, because of the praise and worship music, and then all the speeches that followed. Again, I thought some of the speeches were reflective of a memorial service, um, but I also thought the other half of them were, to your point, like almost like rallies, like a rally to war, a rally to fight. And it's like, guys, what? And to your point, Stephen Miller, this guy's never busted a grape at a fruit fight. Literally, never been in a fist fight. You know that. It's
No.
always funny that those or the Ben Shapiro's or whoever are talking about fighting. Like, dude, just be quiet. Y'all haven't busted grapes at fruit fights. You're not fighting anyone.
Yeah, and so like you got this is so Charlie Kirk is Christian. Christianity advocates for peace and for forgiving people. Okay, right, understood. Why is it then Erica Kirk comes out there 2 days, 3 days after her husband gets executed in public for everyone to see, and she already can bring herself to forgive this kid? I'm sorry, bro. I'm sorry. Like, it doesn't. It takes me a little longer than 3 days to forgive the person who just shot my loved one, or my significant other. Weird. But then it's even weirder for her to say, "I forgive you. I forgive this young man." But then Trump comes in there and says, Charlie was, he say, you gotta forgive, you gotta forgive your opponents, or you gotta something about basically forgiveness and not being, not escalating. And then Trump comes in there and says, no, I hate my opponents. I hate my opponents.
That old word.
Again, politicking, because the man can't help but to politic for himself every chance he gets. And so it's just weird, dude. It's just weird. First of all, you should have held a memorial service that was in private. Okay? Nobody in America needs to see, especially this spectacle of whatever that was, for Charlie. I'm pretty sure Charlie was up there somewhere looking down like, the fuck? No. And to me, I don't really think Erica was in charge of that, so I can't put the blame on her and say, well, why did you let this happen and that happen? But whoever basically is handling Erica right now, whoever basically is kind of her spiritual advisor or whatever and helping her with this, these are the people to blame. These are the people that are like, instead of being genuine about having a memorial service for this man that didn't have to be on national TV, they said, what's best, Erica, is if we do a huge memorial service and just make it a huge event and put it on national TV, and then we see what it is, and it's nothing that it's supposed to be. It's an opportunity, is what it is. It's an opportunity to push the agenda, and for people like Trump and Miller and whoever else. There's other people too. We're only mentioning two people, but there's like some other government officials in there that also got to say some stuff. And you're right, guys. You're right. She is vulnerable, and she is going to not be in the best of in the best mental capacity to make decisions. I get that. But I'm just saying that everything about that was weird. Okay, and I'm not even gonna get into the whole embrace between her and Trump and that whole thing. Like, why was your father-in-law not out there? Why are you not embracing your father-in-law and hugging him like you were hugging Trump? I just have a problem with all of that. All of that irks me, bro. It's so fucking cringe.
Well, so I agree with you. A part of me thinks that I don't know Charlie Kirk personally, but I knew kind of his resilience, and I'll use the word stubbornness, but really I mean his probably pride is what he believed in. He stood firm on. That's what he's known for, unapologetically expressing himself. I don't know if that was far off of what he would want to happen if he got assassinated. I'm not saying all of it. I don't think the Stephen Miller part. I don't think Trump getting political and talking about his enemies. But I will say, I don't know about the production, but I do think that he would want a celebration of life that didn't go political. Maybe that's where the line is. I'm not saying I disagree with you. I do feel like some of that would be, I don't know about the pyrotechnics. that didn't land well.
I mean, she had to wait to walk up to the stage. There was so much fireworks. She had to wait it out.
She had a lot of jewelry on.
I mean, she might as well have a belt over her shoulder with all that bling bling she had on her fingers. You know, look, whatever, man. I'm not gonna get into that stuff.
Yeah, I'm not trying to go after her or attack her or
No,
anything.
not at all, not at
The
all.
ceremony itself was odd.
But the whole thing was odd. It was odd. And maybe you're right. Maybe Charlie Kirk would have wanted something big like that because to him, he in his head, he would have been like, well, this is just a continuation of the message, right? It's a continuation of what TPUSA is. TPUSA is not a opportunity for Republicans and the president and his cronies to come up there and push their agenda. You know, it could have been really beautiful. They really could have. I think that they ruined it, and that's my biggest fear of TPUSA in general is that they're going to take this organization and they're going to ruin it. And you know, people are like, well, why? Erica's at the helm now. Is she going to?
I don't think she should have. I think she should have went last too. I thought it was inappropriate that Trump went last.
Yeah, why was he the keynote speaker?
I feel like I don't know. It's just weird. Part of me was like, I get it, but I don't. Like, she's the wife. She's a loved one. Again, it was just, again, it is what it is. Their decisions, their ceremony, their memorial, whatever you want to call it. But to your point, as soon as the cabinet members started, and some of them gave good speeches, right? Like, not all of them got super divisive and crazy, but some of them, I feel like the more senior it got, the more odd it got. I think JD, I can't remember his exact comments, but his were, I think, based mostly in friendly and freedom of speech or something. I don't think he got as much as Stephen Miller and Trump did, or Trump Jr. or whatever. But overall, I think most of them or some of them kept it civil.
Well, so like you talk about hate speech, and listen, in my opinion, there's no such thing as hate speech.
No, I agree.
The moment we say, well, this is hate speech, it's like, well, then that implies that it's no longer freedom of speech. Then what does freedom of speech mean? We have to give it a definition. You know, is freedom of speech everything except for one or two topics, or is freedom of speech anything that doesn't have to do with the admin? If it's including the admin, it's hate speech. Okay, if it's including a certain country, it's hate speech. But anything else, 99.9%, is free speech. And that's the thing is, like, the term hate speech is as fake as the term anti-Semite. There's no such thing. There's no such thing. Everything a person says is free speech, and we can't do that, because now what they're trying to do is they're saying, well, you know, Charlie Kirk and free speech, and then, well, what's hate speech? Because now all these people are saying, fuck him, he deserved to die. You know, he should have got shot sooner. You know, and this and that, and they're like, well, that's hate speech. It's only hate speech to you because Charlie was a conservative. You know, and conservatives are at the helm right now. But that's a slippery slope that can reverse and backfire on us when the next Democratic or super liberal, admin wants to take the White House.
Again, I said this in a few episodes. Go back to 2016 to 2020. What was good for the goose was good for the gander. We were inevitably going to find ourselves back at these places. You know, Jimmy Kimmel this week, everyone's up in a storm. It's like, hey, hold on. Roseanne Barr, social media suppression of any conservative angle or anti, jab. I don't know if I believe, don't get me started. People are so short-minded and short-memoried.
Well, Jimmy Kimmel cheered on Roseanne Barr's show getting taken down.
Right.
He cheered it on.
Right.
He actually referenced the 1A and saying that there are some things you should just not allowed to say. And you know what? Good that she got her show taken down. All right, bitch, well, you got your show taken down, and now you're crying 1A. And look,
Bill Maher.
And me, as an American who is a constitutionalist, I have to defend you because you are now defending a principal constitutional right. So regardless of whether I like you or not, I have to defend you, and I have to defend your 1A. And that's how it should work. It should be that nuanced.
Now, I will also tell you, I am not the guy who should be the constitutional expression and explanation guy here, but people, I think, have a wrong interpretation of what free speech means. You say whatever you want. You shouldn't be shot for it. The government shouldn't be able to persecute you or prosecute you for it unless it's communicating a threat. Freedom of speech is not you say what the hell you want and everyone's got to tolerate it. That's not what that means. And, even myself here, as long as there's a check that hits my checking account that doesn't have my name at the top of it, I answer to someone. He answers to someone. So when you say stuff, you're always subject to we don't want that. You represent our organization. We don't want that. We're going to let you go. That for people to be up in arms about him being let go, or the FTC or FFC, whatever it's called, FCC, shut his show down. It's like, they didn't just shut his show down. They have a bunch of stations or subsidiaries, or how do you say that word, that just weren't going to televise the show. They're not going to support it. When you call all the MAGA supporters, and I'm so tired. I wish this country would stop grouping people together, right? Extreme far left MAGA supporters. I know plenty of conservatives that are not supporters of Trump. I know a lot of liberals that are not support. I
Never
know.
in MAGA.
No. And that's, it's just, if I think we just got to get back to a place to stop trying to group people so that you have a justifiable position to disagree with them and call them the enemy. That's why people group people like that, so they can just call in one swath they're the enemy. But yeah, him being canceled and freedom of speech, I think, I'll be quite frank with you, I should be able to walk out there in the front of my house and someone should be able to look at me and say the most vile, inappropriate, whatever they want to say. And just like you and I did when we were kids, Cal, we had a choice. We could immaturely punch them in the face and get in a fist fight, or we could turn around and walk away. Not until someone puts their hands on you or threatens you is there any other reverse action. But just a couple years ago, we started saying, well, we have to govern that. We have to govern hate speech. We have to govern, you can't do this on a campus. You can't. Look, I'm not trying to be divisive here, but like, I can't recall, and maybe I'm just not, I don't see it on TV, and I have a feeling if it happened, it would be all over TV, given the ratio of progressive versus conservative outlets, that if there were liberal people that were going on college campuses or in city centers or speaking about liberal policies, pro ideology, this, we would see it all over the TV that their lives are being threatened, people are trying to kill them, and being chased off campuses. I could be wrong. I don't recall seeing that. I don't recall, Dean Withers or what's that other little kid on TikTok. I just don't recall a place where those guys are online saying that their lives are at risk. I can tell you, Ben Shapiro was going on college campuses years ago and has always been chased off campuses, has always had life threats. Literally, and if anyone knows Ben Shapiro, he's not a threatening figure. The dude is like short, scrawny. You're literally mad at the words he's saying. You're emotionally being charged by words being spoken. And it's a sad state that we've raised kids in a society to say, if you don't like that, they're the problem. They need to alter their speech, and you are entitled and right to it. The View said, and I'll shut up after this. The View said something the other day. Sunny hosting, or one of them said, "I have a right to leave my house and feel safe. I should not have to hear racist this." It's like, ma'am, you don't get it. You're not getting it. Actually, you have a right to leave your house and be safe, that no one should threaten your life, no one should harm you. And if someone says something that you consider to be hate speech or harmful, you should walk away. That person shouldn't be removed. We shouldn't govern that speech. And that's where I just think we've lost, sight of what free speech is. If you work for someone, it's not free speech. They can hold you accountable. And if you go in a society where you say something that someone doesn't agree with, you shouldn't be harmed. Or if you do get harmed, then obviously there's consequences to that. But in no world should you be safe or governed, or someone should govern someone else so they don't offend you or hurt your feelings.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. But it's so ridiculous that people don't even see that it's a construct. It's designed to keep us pointing fingers at each other, designed to keep each other at each other's throats, Americans at each other's throats. It's like a refresh, a recharge of things that we need to be pissed off about. Nobody was saying anything about hate speech and free speech before Charlie Kirk got shot. The last time we heard free speech, hate speech was when the pro-Palestine students were protesting on college campuses, and they were trying to make it where if you said free Palestine, that was hate speech. See? So we all know that saying free anything is not hate speech. But that was the last time we heard about it. Now they're trying to recharge it again, and I think a lot of it is, whether it was designed this way or whether this is more just opportunity, is a lot of what's happening with the Charlie Kirk assassination is now they're using to keep America divided. I mean, just look at the Tyler Robinson, comes from a MAGA family, but he has a transgender boyfriend roommate. I mean, look, we all got skin in the game. If you say you're conservative or if you're a MAGA, hey, He's one of yours. If you like transgenderism and you're a hardcore liberal, he's also one of yours. Okay, so it's not like, oh, this kid's MAGA. No, he's not. He's a liberal, leftist, whatever. No, he's American. That's what America is. America is a hodgepodge of different mentalities and mindsets and outlooks and people adopting shit and discarding other shit. This kid came from a MAGA family and he decided that he was gay or he had a transgender boyfriend. Guess what? He's neither a lefty or a righty. You know?
Bill Maher said that. Bill Maher said, he goes, I don't think he belongs to the left or right side. I think he's a loser who sat in his parents' basement with VR goggles on getting pumped up by a wombat. Bill Maher said that. He's like, I don't know if he belongs to either side. He's a freaking insane person. He's a lunatic.
Yeah. I mean, who knows if he is a lunatic, because he had a really good GPA at school. He had a full ride scholarship. I mean, look, I'm not saying that just because he's intellectual that he's, mentally sane, but if you have a GPA, if you have a high 3.8 or 4.0 GPA and you're getting a full scholarship to a college, and you come what looks like from a decent family, more than likely you're not a shithead. More than likely you're not an idiot. You're not crazy. The having a transgender boyfriend, cool, bro. That's your sexual orientation or preference, but that doesn't make you one or the other. It just makes you a normal human being. Do I think that he had it in him to take that shot? Yeah, I think he did have it in him to take that shot, if he actually felt that way towards Charlie Kirk. But I personally think that it wasn't him that did it. Because, again, going back to the official narrative, nothing about this kid makes sense. What they're telling us, this is not stuff that we're digging up with conspiracy theories. This is what the FBI, the governor of Utah, the local authorities, everybody who wants to talk on it, this is the information they're giving us. And none of it adds up. And if it did add up, and let's say it was Tyler Robinson, Lane, if you just shot one of the most prominent figures in America, would you then, 5 hours later, go to a Dairy Queen, enjoy a blizzard while you're looking at the TV and just hanging out for a little while? Like, would you do that? I wouldn't.
Well, you and I wouldn't.
I don't think this kid would have either, though.
I don't know, brother. And again, I just, unless the conversation's completely made up, his conversation, you could tell he was if it's true, was far more confident in his planning and execution of this. And he was delusional at best. He's like, I left no fingerprints. I left it. Like, no, shut up, dude. You're an idiot. You touched the ledge. You were laying in the rocks. You grab a towel. Like, you had no gloves on. Like, you can't. You're texting. This is what's weird. He's texting his boyfriend step-by-step thoughts on how he's going to recover the weapon. The cops are there. I can't go there right now. I just don't know if someone's doing that in live action as it's going down.
They call this performative. Right? This is like this new buzzword that's come around the last few years, performative. It makes sense in this case. If you look at the text message thread between the two, it's like, look, if these two were roommates, if these two were lovers, if these two had spent any quality time together and had more than a superficial conversation, he would have known that that rifle belonged, or that rifle was given to him by his grandfather. He would have known that scope was expensive. He would have known the obvious information that they're passing to each other in this text message, like it's the first time ever. This is information they would have known about each other, bro.
Mm-hmm.
But why does the text message read like these guys just met, so they have to give each other full context? Like, that's the gun my dad gave me, and and this is I had a week. Like, come on, dude. And he said he had a week to do it. There's no way. You and I couldn't pull that off in a week.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, I'm just going off of his demeanor and the way he's standing, the facial expression on his face. When he's in that Dairy Queen with the blizzard in his hand and the food, and he's looking up what looks like to be a TV, maybe a menu, but it looks like he already got his food. He looks like he's looking at a TV. The facial expression on his face looks like a 22-year-old college kid that just decided to get some DQ for the day and he's about to go home. It doesn't give me, an assassin vibes whatsoever. Not even nervous, no anxiety, nothing in his face shows me concern. Holly Movie Star said, what are your thoughts about the Bella Ciao, the anti-fascist resistance song. What do you think about that?
I'm looking.
The writing on the bullet.
I
One
mean, look, man.
well, it wasn't
I'm a
Casey with the bullet, wasn't it?
Yeah, but I know. So I know that song from the Netflix series. It was recorded and made in Spanish, but it was translated into English. It's when they go rob the bank. That's what I know it from because they actually sing that song. The Heist, I think is what it's called. But in reference to this specific question, I don't know. Dude, I don't understand. I don't know. Maybe I just need to look up the meaning fascist. I just don't think most modern Americans qualify as. I'm sure the extremes do, but I just even Charlie Kirk. What made him a fascist? What part of that, right? Like he had conservative values, Christian values. He said, I've seen people, show snippets of him saying he was criticizing DEI and said, like, if I see a black pilot, I wonder if they're qualified. So, of course, people said, he said, no, all black pilots aren't qualified to fly. That's not what he said.
Well, that
He
has
was
nothing to do
challenging.
with it either, though.
No, I know. But my point is, like, what are these horrible things in this person that he said and stood for that made him fascist? Or what are the things that people believe make Trump the modern day Hitler? uh like that's my thing is that when you actually get to the point, it's like, okay, justify your point or defend your perspective of why you think this person is this. I will tell you, people are like, Trump's racist, and they usually go back to the 80s or whatever it is, and
Yeah, he's
the
racist.
ad he took out.
He's
You know,
racist.
yeah, like what?
He,
And my point is, if it's race, oh, I don't know why people care. Well, yeah, because he was voted the president. Okay, Biden, Bush took us to war. Like I just don't understand this like virtuous signaling and mountaintop grandstanding of like, you were an ist of XYZ and I am this virtuous, moral, right person. And then that's the same person years later you see get arrested for child pornography or something. Like, dude, people are imperfect. All people are crazy. All people have inequities, imbalances, and things like that. But like using these words, I mean, back in the day, I think it started with racist. Like, you say anything I don't like or insensitive, you're a racist. And then it became you're homophobic. And then it became you're transphobic. And then it's like that's hate speech. And then it was like hate speech is violence. It's like, no, violence is violence. Nothing someone can say is violence. So anyway, I just inciting violence, the speech that incites violence. It's like, well, no, violence is if you say something to me and I don't like it and I'll punch you in your face, I'm guilty of committing violence. You're guilty of saying something that I didn't like and you got punched in the face for it, but you didn't incite the violence. It's a, I don't know. That's a long way to say all that stuff, but
I think the messages on the bullet casings were just theatrics, if you ask me. That's just mine, because he left them on the roof. He left the screwdriver on the roof. There's fingerprints on the bullets. There's fingerprints on the screwdriver. The kid is not dumb. Realizes. I mean, he's watched a few episodes of some crime mystery movies or whatever, TV shows. He knows that, you know what, I better not just leave these items on the roof. Let me take them with me. Because if I'm going to go through the trouble of caching this rifle somewhere in the woods, why would I leave incriminating evidence on the rooftop with my fingerprints and DNA on it? And so, it's very hard for me to answer a question like, what do you think about the Bella Ciao, when I think the whole thing, at least
yeah,
that of it, was,
you don't believe the premise.
yeah,
So the rest
yeah,
of it makes no sense.
yeah. The rest of it makes no sense. So, we could
Callow,
spiral.
when's the last time you had a debate? You looked at a person and either you wanted to lobby an insult or label them, and you called them a fascist. How old are you? Mid 40s, late 40s? How many times have you done? You've been in a fair amount of arguments and disagreements, I would
Yeah,
imagine.
I never called a person a fascist.
Ever, it's never crossed my mind. I've called people some pretty incendiary things, like every
Most of the
curse
people
word in
that
the
use the
book.
word fascist don't even know the definition of the word. It's some skewed interpretation in their head of what they think a fascist actually is. It's just a really hurtful, mean word that you can say at each other.
Ist.
You
It's an
fascist.
IST word. Yeah.
You really got him.
Racist. Ist. Dude, it's just, yeah, it's just the whole thing.
You
Even
feel
when
like
people
you
hear
feel good about yourself, like, wow, you really told him, call him a fascist.
I think people are saying based off his actions and the allowance of figures to do fascist things. Are you referencing Charlie?
I think he is. Or
this verbiage comes out of far left circles in academia. Yeah, I appreciate that. I know the origin, um,
Yeah.
but again, a lot. I'm imagining a lot of those lessons and teachings are using historical context and historical events to pull out actual fascism, and then they'll take a few characteristics or variables of today's modern society, and they'll say this is reflective of fascism. Trump's actions are reflective of Hitler, or Trump, or of Hitler. I was talking about Trump. Oh, I mean, fascist things. Okay, like what? You know what I mean? I'm not attacking you, by the way, Tinks. I'm just saying, like, he's racist because of, well, he did this and he took an ad against black people. Okay. Charlie Kirk was accused of being racist. And of course, I've seen some of the accusations. He does fascist things. Well, what did Biden do? What things did Biden do? What labels? What inequities? Um, you know, Bush,
I'm pretty
Barack Obama.
pretty sure that Biden was a huge racist. There's video clips of him back in the '80s, early Congress days, saying the N-word with a hard R, like to Congress, and not one person says, "Whoa, sir, you can't say that."
Well, the country's changed since then, though, Kawa. Well, no shit. Like, Holly movie star. When I heard the report from a camera phone, the report sounded suppressed to me. Uh, what if he was on the roof, but was the sleight of hand having him thinking he did pull the trigger? Oh yeah,
I'm
Tinks, we know where you're coming from, brother. I'm not attacking you. I'm just the
yeah,
whole narrative of modern society and how we label people. And again, I know people don't like Trump. I'm not sitting here under some illusion that I don't don't understand how people don't support him or like him. But to jump on these extremes and make people sound inhuman and dehumanize them by making them seem like they're a threat to our humanity, or he's an existential, I can't say the word tonight, threat to our democracy. Like, no, he's not. He's just not. Nor was Barack Obama. Nor was President Bush. I mean, nor was Clinton. Like, none of these presidents were those kind of threats to our democracy or our country. This language has been adopted over the last 10 to 15 years to be a political difference, and with that comes these other words of fascist, racist, transgenderism,
you don't need to be.
anti or transphobic. Oh,
But
of
in the
course.
but in the but historically, presidents don't need to be the poster boy for fascism or racism or anything because they know that that already exists within their parties. All they have to do is find the triggers to get that going. Or in this case, you use Tyler Robinson, and you say, well, he came from a MAGA family, so he must have been a fascist. It's like it makes no sense.
What
What
and
about
think about this though, real quick, because someone just said that. Two things you just said that, and it sparked something. So in 2020, there were people who said, "I can't vote for Trump, so I'm voting for Biden." Right? I can't vote for that guy. Fair enough. Well, then what's the flip of this? Maybe that family couldn't vote for Biden, so they voted for Trump. Maybe they're not MAGA. Maybe they have some conservative values, or they like the Second Amendment, or maybe they're staunch on the abortion issue, whatever. What if that family just couldn't vote for Biden? Does that make them MAGA? Does every person who voted for Trump be MAGA? I know male African American votes increased. How was that possible? You think a bunch of male African Americans are MAGA? No, they're not. The statistics just blatantly disprove those predispositions. Um, and I think what you just said is what Akal was alluding to on the beginning of this episode. This has all been a smokescreen to me because lots of things have happened since that people aren't paying attention to, because this is all front page stuff. That's the sad part of this, W, is that our government and our media is so untrustful that you can't trust them, to where it makes you cause question, and it makes you kind of reanalyze, like, wait, is this a smokescreen to cover something else up? Well, why do we think that? Because it's been proven in history that they've done it time and time again on multiple occasions in multiple ways. And this is what causes people to ask these questions.
and you know where this is all coming from? If Epstein was never a thing, right? If Epstein was never a thing and Charlie Kirk shooting happened, there wouldn't be all these conspiracy theories. There wouldn't even be all this talk about, well, was it Israel? Was it, because it didn't start with Charlie. Charlie is just a continuation of the deeper talk. The deeper talk is who is in charge of this country, who has influence over our politics, and who's actually calling the shots. And that's something that Charlie decided to acknowledge, but maybe ignore for the longest time. Or maybe it took him this long to finally realize who really is pulling the strings. And as he was waking up, they decided that he needed to be silenced. Because again, he was so influential to the youth of America on the conservative side. But even a lot of liberal kids would come to those prove me wrong, college sessions because they wanted to talk, they wanted to debate Charlie, but they would also learn, and there's been several liberal students that have given post interviews that said, I don't agree with him on this topic, but I respect the guy. And so it's not just the conservative youth of America that he was influencing, but he was influencing the liberal youth of America as well. And there was room for common ground there that people were finding. And the common ground was, maybe this is not a left and right issue. Maybe there is other entities here that are causing divide within our society, within our people, by constantly fanning the flames of a certain topic like immigration or DEI or cops versus black people or whatever or fascists. And I think that the reason why Charlie's not here anymore is because of how important and influential his voice was, and how that would have amplified from the recent few months ago, since he started questioning things and started questioning people that are basically backing him financially and in other ways. And I think that it was important to silence Charlie because, and listen, this is going to be a hardship, but what was it that Charlie was talking about right before he got killed? He was talking about Israel's influence in our government, Israel's control through lobbies like AIPAC. The questions that he was asking was like, he's learning this for the first time. I don't think he was acting. I legitimately think that he finally woke up that, holy shit, AIPAC is a Zionist lobby. They're buying all of our politicians. And when you own both sides of the aisle, then who's really being represented by these politicians? And I think Charlie was waking up to that. And if he's waking up to that, he's so influential, and one day he may be bigger than what he is now, like a president or a congressman. You can't have that going into politics. You can't have that going into America's youth. So you silence him, right? And I'm kind of beating around the bush, but you guys read between the lines. You silence him. And then what do? You have to put somebody in his place that gets TPUSA back on track. That's my guesstimation, is you need somebody who's pro-Zionist, pro-Israel to get TPUSA back on track. Why do you think, what's that little weasel's name, that Ben Shapiro? That's why Ben Shapiro was pushing so hard to basically come to TPUSA and continue Charlie's college campus tour. Ben Shapiro already said that the only reason he lives in America is because America supports Israel. He literally admitted that he is Israel first, and he is a Zionist, and he's a proud Zionist. Do you really think that Ben Shapiro or any Israeli Zionist pro-Israel person would have TPUSA's best interest at heart with America's youth? I don't think so. And I know we're kind of, we're
you couldn't even mask him.
We're in a Charlie Kirk fucking pinball machine here, and we're all over the place. But there is no chronological way to take this on, so we're just talking about things as they come, and your guys' comments as well. And I think that's why the meeting happened in the Hamptons, because they said, look, come to Israel for 2 weeks. He said no. You got Bill Ackman or whatever his name is that says, hey, Israel, Netanyahu himself is going to inject $150 million into TPUSA, but the condition is, and allegedly the condition would be, that no more negative talk about Israel, no more bringing attention to AIPAC and the genocide in Gaza, no more of that. No more having people like Tucker Carlson and Megyn Kelly and Candace Owens and Dave Smith on panels to our audience, because it was very much their audience too. Don't forget they financed TPUSA. when you finally lose control of your person, as in you tell him, hey, can you not talk about this stuff anymore? And he says, well, if you're going to tell me not to talk about this, I'm just going to talk about it more. So you can't control him. And then what they try, they're like, well, come here, come to Israel. Let's give you one of those classical Israeli tours where we, bring you back to Judeo-Christianity. And he said, no, thank you. So he's not wanting to kind of bring it in for a warm and fuzzy and Tel Aviv, is he? And then what do they finally do? They said, okay, you know what? We'll give you $150 million. You can do big things with 150 for TPUSA. Just don't talk about Israel anymore. He says no. So now you can't control him. You can't bring him back in for a warm and fuzzy, and you can't bribe the man. What are you left with? If he's becoming a danger to you and your message, what are you left with? Read between the lines. This is not a 22-year-old lone shooter acting because he thinks Charlie Kirk is a fascist. This is a set-up professional hit to take out a very influential person who is now going against the grain a little too hard.
Yeah, Holly Movie Star just said my my worry is that lingo is radicalizing the youth of the country, and the same way youth has radicalized no matter the country. And then obviously W confirmed, that he voted and he's not MAGA at all. I wanted to jump to a comment. I see you, Rosa. I'll tell you right now, I've heard people say that they voted for Obama, he's black. I'm okay with that. It's your freedom. Dude, that's good. Good for you. But I would flip on the flip side is if someone votes for someone for whatever their reasons are, that's their reasons. Like that's the whole democratic process that we believe in, and people having votes. But however, I wanted to hit on this, Kawa, because this is something I've had a conversation about in recent with other friends. All the messaging is weird to me because now the focus has been Christian nationalism talking points, where you have to read between the talking points and ask why focus is Christianity. Well, I'll tell you why. I'm Christian, by the way. Cow is not Christian. But I say this is we've been openly demonizing in our own country, by the way, not by Muslims, by the way, demonizing Christianity for the last 20 years. We've taken it out of school. We've said you shouldn't be saying prayers. And I hate to say it, but typically white Caucasian progressives in this country think it's against the lines to be a proud Christian. And what you're seeing is, and I've kind of said this, is I was having a conversation with a woman who's kind of a mother figure in my life, very staunch Christian. I told her, I said, the tolerant, and PBD said this years ago, and I kind of agree with him. The tolerant Christian created a lot of these problems. The tolerant Christian, through the pursuit of acceptance, wanting to be accepting of others' ways of life, even if it wasn't Christianity, started to say, you know what? If you want to marry the same sex, go do your thing. Fine, do your thing. You know what? If you want to do this, do that. Things that we have been, Christians have been way against for a very long time, not acceptance. The abortion thing, well, I don't believe in abortion. There's some few acceptance or exceptions. You know what? Okay. And then through that, you started to see where you could walk down the street and be like, Christians are stupid. Christians are dumb. They believe in some whatever. And I guarantee you, if you went into a public setting in a progressive city in America and say that in a bar or something, people wouldn't bat an eye. It'd probably be a joke, like kind of laugh. And I'll tell you, I think this from any religious perspective, I think that's highly offensive. And it used to be very offensive to do so. Hey, how all Muslims are stupid. You would never say that. I just think that's an ignorant statement for any adult to say. And again, it goes back to that groupthink or that grouping people together and labeling them. They're extremists. There are idiots. There are terrorist organizations that have weaponized, the Muslim religion. It's not Muslims. It's not Muslims that are around the world that think that, infidels and we're gonna kill all X and Y. No, that's just not true. There are Christians out there that don't want to persecute or think that if you're not Christian, you're going to hell. There are people that say those things, but that doesn't make it. It's just, I'll tell you, I think what you're seeing, because I don't know if you noticed, Kala, you probably don't watch it. There's some talent shows. American Idol this past year. American Idol did the same thing. I think we just lost feed. American Idol had a lot of people performing Christian songs during their performances, and people were like praising and worshiping. And I just thought it was weird. I was like, this is on TV? Like this used to be not okay. You know what I mean? So I don't know if it's to W's point. I don't know if it's intentional that all this Christian messaging is coming back and proud Christians and God first, whatever, or if it just happens to be happening.
I think that is the Christian messaging is the continuation of Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk,
Yeah.
don't forget, as much as he loved debating, immigration or any other kind of societal topic, he always spoke from a Christian foundation, right? And maybe sometimes he backpedaled to like a Christianity safe net, but sometimes he would say some pretty not Christian things. But I think that's the one continuity that we've seen so far. But we haven't seen any other continuity. What we've seen so far now is a spin on Charlie Kirk's uh, um, death itself, on Charlie Kirk himself. We've seen a spin on that. Because if they would have said, look, Charlie stood for Christianity and, like he recently, and obviously the other topics, immigration and DEI and transgenderism, all that. But recently he was also speaking on, what's happening in Palestine. Is it an actual genocide? Is it an actual ethnic cleansing? Which he did say those things. But they're staying away from that. They're staying away from that because if you bring attention to that area of the world, then this is what got them in trouble in the first place. And so, but at least what we're seeing is the Christian values, or the Christian not values, that's the wrong word, but the Christian image of Charlie Kirk is like they're trying to keep that alive, but they are putting a spin on it, and that spin is that Charlie Kirk loved Israel, and this is coming from like Netanyahu and all these other people, which we can get into here in a second. But Charlie Kirk loved Israel. He defended Israel. He was a staunch supporter of Israel. And therefore, if you support Charlie Kirk and you love him, then you should love Israel. Okay? And if you don't, if you think, well, Kyle, that's the kind of, I don't know, then go look at the tweets that were coming out the day of, right when Charlie Kirk died, and then tell me in what other time in history or what other part of the world does a foreign leader tweet minutes after about a man in another country who has nothing to do with his country, while at the same time he has a seven-front war with his neighbors, okay? Who goes out of their way to tweet, and then later, after Charlie's dead, tweet even longer that Charlie was supposed to come here, and he wrote me this letter. Unfortunately, he's not going to come now. When the truth was, he turned you down to come there. And this letter that you have is bullshit because you won't show it to us. But apparently, Charlie wrote Netanyahu a letter that he loves Israel and he's always going to defend Israel, this and that. That's what I mean by the spin. The post-death spin, especially from the Israel side, is if you love Charlie, you love Israel. If you love America, because if you love America, you gotta love Israel. That's always been there. But now it's Charlie. If you love Charlie and you supported Charlie, you need to support Israel. Pay attention. And what other time in history does a foreign leader of another country decide to go on live television, international television, and do a whole video about how he didn't kill Charlie Kirk and how Israel didn't kill Charlie Kirk? When has that ever happened? Right? It's a little too convenient. It's kind of like 9/11 Netanyahu. Remember when he said that 9/11 was good for Israel? His words, not mine. Charlie Kirk's death was good for Israel, if you ask Kawa.
So, a few things here. I'm just catching up with chat while you're talking. Gen Z. See, Tinks, I think that's right though. I'm Gen Z and we do joke about Christians, but it's based off of horrible Christians. And yeah, and the operative word there is you're joking, right? Like you're not walking around having pure hatred for people who claim to be Christians or think they're stupid or dumb humans or low class humans because they have a religious belief or they were raised a certain way or they were exposed to a certain belief system. So yeah, I get it. And I think if you saw me and Kawa, you put me, Cal, or some of our friends in a room playing video games or having a drink or two, our jokes would be highly insensitive, but literally meant just to be a joke. Yes, Charlie Kirk was a shepherd of his organization. When a shepherd is taken, wolves see lambs for the taking, an oldest story of humanity. So I do agree. I worry who gets influenced at TPA. And W said, so who will win the political violence argument when it comes to weapons? Because now it's Now it's we need more of this is why people shouldn't have weapons. Well, I'll tell you this right now. Political how far back do we go? A year? 2 years? 5 years? 10 years? I guarantee you when you keep chalking it up, it's there's no winning it. There's both sides have done it. Um, taking weapons away. I'm sure at some point they'll say that, but like anyone who thinks that taking a weapons away will minimize violence, there's a lot of state cases and studies to show you that that's not true. There's cases to show where, it's a moot
Well,
point. Like we're,
I mean, look at the UK. They took away guns, and look, their murders haven't dropped. They increased. Why? Because everybody has knives. You
yeah,
know,
yeah, it's
and you know, like the thing is, with you have to consider a stat, what a statistic in America means compared to the rest of the world. You can't compare America to the rest of the world. You know how many UKs you could fit in America? So there's no comparison between, well, the UK has no guns and look at their stats. Dude, the UK can fit in Texas like 4 times. Okay, America is a huge population of 400 million freaking people or something like that, and about half of those people own weapons, and we have a constitutional right that says we are allowed to own weapons. And then there's restrictions for people to kind of filter out the criminals and the people who are not mentally sane or using drugs. But for the most part, anybody can in any state can go buy a weapon. And political violence when it comes to weapons is like saying, you know, it's such a broad thing to talk about. It's like we should talk about cars and accidents, vehicular homicide, and who's responsible for that, trucks or sedans, right? And it makes no sense. So both sides historically have used weapons for political violence specifically. We just need to accept that in America in 2025, when you have 250 million Americans who own at least one firearm, look at my wall back here, who at least, then there's going to be some fallout from that statistic in a negative way. It's Murphy's law. It has to happen. Otherwise, are we living in a simulation?
Kawa, off the top of your head, how many cops do you think exist in England? Just
How
rough
many
number.
cops? How many?
Yeah,
What's their
total cops
police
countrywide.
force in general?
Yeah, total police force, reservist, active, because they have different types. But just give
I
me a
want to
random.
say I'm gonna lowball it a little bit, but I want to say like 25 to 35,000.
Well, that you actually did, Lobo. It's 170,000 total for all of England and Wales.
170,000
For all of England and Wales.
Wales. Yeah, I mean, that's a lot more than I thought it was gonna be.
But watch this though. So obviously, United States, 1 million.
Yeah.
It's not even. And by the way, that's just local police. That's not federal. Fresh off the press, Director Comey just got indicted.
We knew that was coming.
Yeah. You know, it's funny. I don't even need to turn on the media. He's attacking his political opponents. And again, I'm not saying I support it, but I'm just saying, like, what's good, that's my new saying of 2025, Cal. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. It was good for 2024. Let's indict this man. Let's charge him with every trumped up charge we can make. Let's do this. And y'all thought that petty individual wasn't going to do it back? Y'all,
Yeah, I
what,
mean
what are
that's
we
the thing.
doing, guys?
I talk about this so often that you cannot violate a principle with a scenario or with a what if. There's no, and I use for my tactical guys, I use CQB. You know, CQB we have principles, but people like to what if in CQB. Well, what if this door was open, and what if it was in the corner, not in the center, and what if it was going into a hallway versus a closet? You know, there's so many what ifs, but CQB has a set of principles that if you just stick to those principles, it'll help you figure out all the scenarios that you may be faced with. And that's just the bottom line for anything. You can't sit there and break a constitutional right, a civil right, a human right because of a scenario or because of a what if. In this case, it's because your guy's at the helm. You know, in the next 3 years, maybe my guy's at the helm, and like so, it's called bandwagon politics. And what gets us to this place where we're sitting here arguing on a YouTube live is because
Tribalism.
because of bandwagon politics, tribalism.
Tribalism. Your
Okay,
side, my side. And then I have to be okay with anything my side does.
and
No.
I
Callie,
have
you're
to
my
be
friend. I don't agree with everything you say. Just
and
because
I
you're
have
my
to be
friend
a
doesn't mean I
ride
endorse
like
everything.
I have to be a ride or die, because if
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
not, what? If you're not a ride or die and you agree with one or two things from your side, from your left or right party, what's going to happen to you? You're going to be outcast? No. But then you have to sit there and be able to defend why you disagree with the majority of your demographic. But when you don't, when you because you're afraid, or just because you're brainwashed, or you're completely drunk on the Kool-Aid, then you have become a bandwagoneer for that politician or that person or that team or whoever, and you just cannot have an open mind at that point to even acknowledge the other side's point of view. So, and this is where we're at right here, because neither side can be nuanced. They have to just be all in or nothing. And I mean, look, our country is at a place now because of the whole all in or nothing concept. But I think it's changing. I mean, I think there's more and more people waking up and realizing, like me, who I felt this way for a long time now, that the left and the right is dead. That there is no such thing as a two-party system in America anymore, not in 2025. It's not conservative versus liberals. It's literally us versus them, if you ask me, in simplistic terms. And who's them? Well, them is the people that we think are responsible for, like, people like Charlie Kirk dying. Why you pay $8 for some milk? Why you pay $6 a gallon of gas? Why your real estate taxes keep going up every year, every year, every year? Why 80 billion or 80 million dollars of your state taxes go to a foreign country? All of it is because we're like so ride or die for our side, and that's the wrong answer.
Yeah. W said that's why there's a difference in conservative and MAGA. Yeah, brother, I think most logical and rational Americans that are on both sides, whether they find themselves to have a liberal ideology or belief, when I say liberal, I mean liberal, like not far left, not these extreme terms, or conservative values. Most of those Americans are in the middle, have so many things they agree on with slight differences. But what happens is those people are typically rational. They're not the loudest. They're taking care of their family. They're living their life. And then on the extreme sides of each side, you have the loudest, most extremely opinionated people with the most extreme views. And but because they're the loudest, they get to represent that side. And then that side gets labeled by the loudest representation of that side. When I think the majority of Americans, if you sit down in a room and go, man, I don't agree with that. I kind of agree with this. And that's okay because we're just here, we're friends or we're associates and we're discussing something we don't agree at. I think that's on both sides of most disagreement with it or political discourse in this country.
I'll say that since October 7th, when I started kind of speaking up, advocating for Palestine, but then I also advocate for anything that is supporting the Constitution. That has got me. Like, I was never a liberal. I was never a Democrat. I voted for Trump this time and last time. But I don't know if I consider myself a conservative anymore. Like, I'm definitely not MAGA, but there's definitely things that I disagree with on the conservative side, and there's definitely things that I agree with on the liberal side. Now I'm just at a place where I'm like, principally, what are we owed? If that's principally what we're owed, then outside of it, I don't want to hear it. If you're trying to violate that, I don't want to hear it. I don't care who you are, you know. And that's just how I feel. I live my life just based off principles now. And if one person gets to enjoy this freedom, guess what? Everybody gets to enjoy this freedom. If one person is considered an American, guess what? Even that other person that you hate every other day, you have to consider them an American. And you can't sit there and sit and talk about deporting one demographic of people because they're not your skin color or because you have this perception about them. Because then they can turn around and do the same thing to you. It's what Lade and I have been saying this whole time is that everything comes around. When you decide to violate a principle, then you open yourself up for the same kind of attack later.
And you think, you just said the word and I'm passionate about it and we haven't really talked about it and we're not going to go too deep into it tonight, but like any issue, whether it versus religion, um, Palestine and Israel, you just said the word immigration. It's like, I don't agree with everything going on. I don't know. What I'll tell you is, again, the last 2020 to 24, I was like, guys, is this responsible to say We haven't opened the border. That's a lie. That's misinformation. The border's as normal as it's always been. That's just not true. That was a false statement. And then now we have people going, this administration's rounding people up illegally and all this. Not saying they're not, but what was going to be the result of that? What like politically, what was going to be the response to one administration? By the way, not this administration, the previous 5, 6, 7 administrations having border laws or whatever. Like the politicians don't want the issue fixed. If they wanted it fixed, they would change the law. They would change the law. If they really believed in being able to let people come in, hey, we don't need to arrest them. They're not civil offenses. All of you politicians just a few years ago had the House, the Senate, and the office. Why didn't y'all change the immigration law? Why didn't you change the immigration law? You didn't because you don't want it fixed. It's been a hot topic for over decades. It's going to continue to be a hot topic. Now it's
And
just the immigration is the easiest thing to pick on to go, guys. Americans, stop believing this freaking culture shock war of like poor immigrants are being deported or immigrants are being flooded. Dude, you're being played by your own government. Like the
and don't
topic could
forget,
be solved a long time
just,
ago.
and just to support what Lane is saying, people come down on Trump for being so hard on deporting illegal immigrants and this and that. Don't forget Obama.
The porter in chief.
Don't forget the deporter in chief himself, who set up a lot of those little imprisonments, encampments, and stuff that all these people are in today. Don't forget that Obama built that over 8 years. In fact, during his first term, and then ramped it up during his second term. So this is not Democrats love immigrants and Republicans hate them. It's literally what Lane said. If politicians actually wanted to fix the shit, then they would have changed the laws.
It's a long time ago, but it's like a chessboard. And I'll be honest, here's my 10 cap moment and why I've recommended to you to talk about the immigration because of where I get a little on the is I think the last administration wanted to flood Democrat-led cities, which are typically your metropolitan areas that have a lot of social programs. I won't call them good. They have bigger budgets and they have the ability to flood voting booths. And they were going to try to get the districts redistrict congressionally, and they were going to try to flood the voting booths. What they didn't anticipate, and I'll tell you to go look this up. Go look up how many cases were filed locally at all the different states with Lord Trump leading that effort. I'm not trying to I'm trying to grandstand for Lord Trump. I'm just telling you, go look at how many lawsuits were filed to make sure that when election day came, all those shenanigans that people reported, I don't know if they're true or not. I don't believe everything I read, but if they were the case, all the court cases that were ruled in favor of absentee ballots, exact times the polls close, no more counting after this timeline. I'm not the Republicans typically don't fight well, but I think they learned a few lessons from 2020 and said, we got beat. Not it got stole from us. They looked at the rules, they looked at ways that they could exploit the voting system and they won. They won the election. And then the Republicans come 2024 said, we're going to play by those same rules. We're going to sue all these local jurisdictions. We're going to make sure that these things are on the up and up as much as possible, and we're going to run an election. And I quite frankly believe the goal was to flood these metropolitan areas to redistrict population size, get more electorals in certain areas, and then to hopefully present a pathway to success in 2024, whether it be Kamala Harris or Biden. And I just said her name, so I have to say this: the last week and a half has validated how dumb that woman is, and thank God she's not the president of our the United States, because that woman she literally can't have a conversation that doesn't sound like a talking point. I went all over the place, but last week she's been doing tours about the book, and it's just insane.
I was thinking about what you said, but I get people from both sides that come at me now in my DMs. I get conservatives that call me, kind of like at the harshest, a traitor. They call me a traitor.
I don't want to be with the
I
latest
have
thing.
I've always had kind of liberals that would reach out to me and be like this, that, and the other. Especially since I started speaking up about Palestine, they're like, "Well, how are you so pro-Palestine, but yet you're against this?" And I'm like, "Because of this X, Y, Z reasons is why." But again, they're trying to. It's that whole bandwagon tribalism thing. Is that listen? If you're pro-Palestine, then you should also be pro this, pro that, anti this, anti that. And I'm like, no, I don't have to be any of those things. And that's why on the conservative side, I also get people that come at me like, "Oh, you're a traitor. Somebody was like, you infiltrated,
A wannabe. You're a wannabe.
Yeah, you're a wannabe. You should take your hat off. you insult that flag. Like, dude, I get all kinds of stuff because again, people are in this tribalistic mindset, and they just can't. I don't know if we did it to ourselves or if we just let the media and everything kind of get to us, but we're so hard. We're so hard up about like I have to be right on this, even if I'm wrong, and I think that's just, and I don't know, that's just where I'm at. And so for me, going back to Charlie Kirk, it's very hard for me to one trust the government. And if any of you out there can say that you trust the government, then
You need
I
to
don't.
read some more.
Yeah, yeah. So, and the thing is, at this point, I don't need to be a conspiracy theorist to know that Charlie Kirk's shooting did not go down the way the government says it went down because of the lack of transparency, because of the vagueness of information, because of the lack of information, and some blatant lies, like blatant lies. Okay, and that's enough for me not to trust the government. But I haven't trusted the government since like 9/11, like 2001, a long time ago,
While
and
working for the government.
while working for the government, yeah, and so, but I don't need to be a conspiracy theorist to question the official narrative, and I don't need to reach far just to say that the official narrative is wrong. And if we just kind of, while we're in our own circles trying to figure out what actually happened with Charlie Kirk and who the players are, on a united front, we need to say this is not good enough. We demand to see the forensic reports. We demand to see the projectile that you say that Charlie's adamantium skeletal spine somehow stopped this 30-06 from going out. Then we want to see that. We want to see that destroyed note that you somehow forensically put back together. We want to see the actual text messages in the Discord chats. We want to see the high-res footage from the campus, because what I learned about that campus is that it's one of the campuses with the most amount of cameras in the entire state of Utah. I did not know that just until a few days ago. How does this campus have so many cameras that are probably recording in 4K, and we get low 480p, like pixelated resolution footage? How come we don't see Tyler Robinson right after that shot get up off the roof and run for the first half of the roof? Why do we only see him from the second half of the roof with this shadow, popping up and disappearing? Why is there a blue edge on the outside of this building where it looks like it's blue screen? Why is there a guy in the background of the official footage who was walking, and then as soon as Tyler Robinson gets to the edge of the building, that guy disappears and fades? Right? So why are you guys giving us information that we clearly have debunked at this point, and why are you not giving us the information undoctored, unaltered? The whole thing is bullshit. And that's why I don't have to reach far when I say that our government is full of lies, and this whole narrative is full of lies and full of holes. And I think everyone is in on it. And I'm not saying they're in on it as a way to, they're the ones that took out Charlie Kirk. I'm saying that they are turning a blind eye to whoever did. And they sure as fuck are not using the expertise of their agencies and the amount of money that they have to actually find the killer. There's just so many, like, where's the parents? How come we haven't heard from Charlie Kirk's father?
Someone's got a question for you, Kawa. I don't know if I understand the question, but I kind of do. I got a question for you, Kawa. Hypothetically, when Trump sent B-2s to bomb Iran, if the trade was Israel to give up Palestinian land for the bombers, would you agree to that happening?
If the trade was Israel give up Palestinian land for the bombers, would you have agreed? So I guess what you're asking me is if I would have been okay with the B-2s bombing Iran.
Can I answer that before you answer, and then I want to see what your answer is? I'm going to answer for you. Yeah, I think so. Like, if y'all go bomb Iran, we'll give up Palestinian land. Before you answer, Kawa, and I'll keep it short. No, Kawa's not going to be okay with that, because that's the wrong reason to give up the freaking to treat Palestinian like an actual country and like humans. No, like that's not a good reason to give it back. You should give it back based on moral standing or belief that, hey, enough's enough. So I don't know what your answer is going to be, but that would have been my initial response if someone said, what do you think Cal is going to say to this?
Yeah, I think I'm not gonna discredit your question. I just think that it's not a practical question. You're asking me to be okay with bombing another sovereign nation, possibly killing innocent people. You know, whether they were developing nukes or not, those scientists are not like they're not terrorists, bro. They're just trying to provide for their family.
They don't have a choice.
They went to school and now they got recruited by their government and now maybe they're stuck for all we know. But am I okay with us dropping bombs on these people if Palestine got some land back? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Palestine doesn't need to get land back. It's Palestine. You ask any Palestinian what that massive land is, and they're going to say it's Palestine. No one refers to Palestine as Israel. We only say Israel for PC reasons. So if Palestine, what needs to happen is not Palestinians getting their land back, it's that Israel needs to unoccupy their asses off of Palestinian land and stop killing and stop destroying homes and building condos. And what they're doing with Gaza is 100% a real estate project. And Trump's in on it. That's why he's okay with it. He's going to have a badass resort there and probably in the Golan Heights too. And so they're going to kill every Palestinian in Gaza to get that beachfront property. And they want to erase Gaza from history. That's why in California they just passed a law that basically will take Palestine, any mention of Palestine or history of Palestine or the people or the land out of classrooms and textbooks. So that's the goal. And I know it's kind of a long-winded, I kind of ranted a little bit, but yeah, I'm not okay with that. No one would be okay with that. So obviously,
but Kawa, I think real quick, I think it's a good question though. It's almost like obviously, not to say you believe. I don't want to splice your belief into a linear or simple belief because I know it's broad. But I think what you just articulated is the fact that you want what I was asking, not give back, let go. We can see the history of Israel. Yeah, brother. We didn't take your question offensively, but what I think is almost because you support the Palestine people, Kawa, and the freedom, the freedom and access to their own land that they should have. It's almost, and not that you're implying this, Holly. I don't want you to think this. A lot of people think, to the very point of tribalism, because you believe that you would do anything. Not this person. He was just posing the question, he or she. That you would do anything to make that happen. When it's like, no, there's just a human element that you should just do it for the right reasons, not for to get what I want. I would tolerate or take anything happening to get what I want or what I believe in. And I think it goes back to that tribalism point. It's like, well, and not that you implied this, Holly, I promise that's not what I'm trying to imply here, but it's more of our society of like, Cal was pro-Palestinian, therefore Cal would do anything to get Palestine its own freedom, its own access, it's being treated like humans, to not be oppressed, to not be mistreated. You know what I mean? So I think that the question actually frames it really well, and your answer did even better to show that, like, yeah, there's ends, ways, and means to get after this stuff, but you're not willing to violate your moral compass and your human compass to make these things happen. It should just happen for the right reasons, not at the exchange of a bombing or a money deal or something that America would be willing to give them to get them to conform or do the right thing.
Let me say something that's conclusive when it comes to Palestine. The reason I advocate for Palestine so hard is not necessarily because they're Arab or Muslim like me, or it's yes, there's a humanity aspect of it, but the way I see what Israel is doing in Palestine, if you look at what they're doing in Palestine, they're carpet bombing the entire country, and they're slowly encroaching on land, and they have been doing that since the 1940s, and then really started in the 60s. And if you look at what they're doing around the West Bank, is they're encroaching on the perimeters of the West Bank slowly, killing people, kicking people out, and taking over property. If you look at what Israel has been doing in America also since the 40s, since like Woodrow Wilson, right? I think he was president. Is they've been doing the same thing here in America, just without the carpet bombing and without the physical stealing. But they have been encroaching on America for the same amount of time as they have been encroaching on Palestine. They have been taking over the land through military means, through agency means, through government offices, and like corporate positions. I mean, who's in charge of the media these days? Who runs the finance sector, right? Who's in charge of big pharma? Who's in charge of the education department? Who's in charge, and who's on the board of all these companies like Pfizer and Moderna and Microsoft? These are all the same people, and over time they have encroached on America and on American people and our way of life. Look how much they control politics. They out of 445 congressmen, they own like 420 of those on both sides of the aisle. They own a lot of the industry verticals. They're at the tops of most of the industry verticals. So while there's not a lot of bombing happening here in America, and there's not a lot of like homes being destroyed and Israeli condos being built, what they're doing in Palestine directly translates to what they've been doing in America, and that's why I go so hard for Palestine, because if I could wake people up to that and to what's happening here, it's the same thing, just minus all the bombs and bullets. Anyway, that's just a simple like little thing that I give when people kind of ask me. But yeah, maybe we have some time for some questions, Lane, before we wrap it up. Unless you guys have something else that you want to close off with.
Yeah, I got a couple minutes.
Yeah.
See if there's anything else. We got 7 people watching.
Watching, I know it's
W and Holly and Tinks, y'all have been freaking, and Rosa. Rosa used, you remember Rosa? He was one of the Bradley drivers in Second Platoon. Isaiah Rosa.
Rosa?
Yeah, a little short Rosa. Oh, I don't want to call you short Rosa. This dude's name is Chode Lane. Someone made themselves Chode Lane. How as Americans can we Israeli interests out of our gut? Well, I'll tell you, I don't know. Oh yeah, I don't know if we can, because politicians are incentivized to make as much money as they can. One, to get elected. Two, to stay in power. So once they're elected, they're incentivized to stay elected. So they're incentivized to raise funds and make funds. And then when you're in those positions, people will, meet you, engage you, and offer you money. And they won't ask you directly for it. But I'll make an example, and I'm going to pick on the opposing. I'm a pro Second Amendment guy. But if I'm the NRA and Cow is elected to office, and I give Cowa $10 million, I think Cowa knows what I want him to, parting line. If I'm APAC and I want to give him $10 million, I think Cowa knows. And then if Cowa doesn't, okay, you might win this reelection with that money or that initial election, but you're not getting reelected, because I'm just going to find whoever you run against next election, and I'm going to fund them. I'm going to take you down. I'm going to. So again, I think right now we need some campaign finance law. I said this, one of our podcasts, is the last presidential election showed us a lot of things. One thing it showed me is it is insane that one party can blow $1 billion, the other party can blow hundreds of millions of dollars to get elected. That is insane to me. And to see where a lot of that money went.
For $1 billion.
Yeah, it's insane to me that that's even possible. Once you get to your primary, there should be no more fundraising. It's you and your opponent, go tour the country, do your best. Go where you think you can win.
Trump got close to 400 million between Elon Musk, Miriam Adelson of Israel, basically the Israeli lobby, gave him the big pharma. Okay, don't forget Big Pharma gave him like 100 mil. Elon Musk gave him like 240. Miriam Adelson gave him like 100, and then he had his other smaller donors that added up, and they want something for their money. That's the thing. And you say, well, how do we get Israeli influence out of our politics or their interests? What we do is we hold these town hall meetings with our mayors, with our governors, and we say, stop supporting Israel, stop taking AIPAC money, because clearly when you take AIPAC money, you have defaulted away from America's best interests to Israel's best interests. Don't take their money in the first place. So they'll fund somebody else's campaign to run against you, and yeah, they'll inject a bunch of money into it. And look, man, if you're the one that's for the people in your let's say in your township or whatever, in your principality, then hopefully those people come together for you. But when you have a giant like AIPAC throwing money at your opponent, then yeah, more than likely they're going to get more airtime and all that. And that's how they've been winning Congress for the last 70 years. they've been throwing money at a certain congressman saying, hey, we'll fund your entire campaign, but one condition: you will never go against Israel. You will always vote in favor of Israel, and you will always publicly support Israel. And if you do that, we're good. We'll fund you all the way to the top, all the way to the presidency. But once you take that money, you're stuck. And like Lane said, if you say, hey, I'll take your money, and then I say, no, Israel's bad, BDS, then guess what they're going to do next one? Well, during what's left of your campaign, they're going to smear you. They may even try to get you on something dirty. And then for your next campaign, they're definitely going to primary you with somebody else and give them all the money. And these people take it. Why do they take the money? Because they don't give a shit about Palestine. No American politician in any state personally gives a shit about Palestine. And when you don't give a shit about Palestine, then why would you don't have a reason to say no, unless you know that if you don't join the AIPAC lobby party, then your chances of at politics are probably slim to none. You have a short-lived career. So they got us by the balls. But the quick answer is demand that your politicians stop taking AIPAC money, and then demand that AIPAC registers under FARA, which is the Foreign Agent Registration Act. And they need, because they won't register under FARA. And when they do register under FARA, they can't give all this money to our American politicians. So,
the next question is, do you think voters are more influenced by policy or personality, and should it be that way? This is not a belief of mine. I think this is a fact. Hot take. Most Americans don't even know politics. Most of the time, the politician or president or local, most people don't actually understand the policy that they think they support, or the individual. They'll say they back this bill or that bill, but if you actually have opened or looked or researched an actual bill that Congress or Senate, we'll go big, right? Those things are so inundated with so many different things that you don't know what the bill represents. So one side's going to bring what they champion, the other side's going to say what they champion or don't champion, and that's what the whole bill contention becomes. And I would tell you that if you ever want to run an experiment, get with your friends or family and ask them, name 1 to 3 policies of someone you don't support that you supported their policy or their position on a policy. They can't tell you. The only thing they can tell you is who they disagree with and why they disagree with them. So when you hear things like presidents are racist or Biden's Green New Deal, whatever, when they meet these terms, ask them to peel back that layer and say, hey, well, what was in that bill? What were the hindsight 2020, or in the moment, what was the intent of Obama healthcare? What was the intent? What was the outcome? Green New Deal. What was the intent? What was the outcome? What were the after effects that once that bill got written? Because by the way, bills aren't written when they're voted on. I don't know if people know that. They're like roughly drafted, crafted, and then rewritten after it's voted on, the details, what they think to be in this, whatever. Go look that up. I don't know how much you want to go on that one, Cal, but I was going to let you take the next one if you want to.
We need to vote out politicians who take AIPAC money and remind them.
Or just get AIPAC out of it.
The thing is, yeah, I think what needs to happen is, look, if you're taking AIPAC money, then you've already told us who you're going to stand with. That's it. You're not standing with America. America doesn't come first for an AIPAC candidate. Another big one is, where is the most reliable, accurate news today? Okay. There isn't one place that is the most reliable. There isn't 2 or 3 or 10 places that are the most reliable, but it's really how do we filter out the bullshit, right? How do we filter out the bullshit? I think there are certain talking heads in our politics, or political commentators, or whatever you want to call them, influencers today, that when they show us how they have gotten to their information, when they show us, in this case, the receipts, as everybody likes to say, when they show us that gives them a lot of credibility. When you check on these receipts, or they give their sources and they say, here's the source, and then you go to that source and it checks out, that kind of consistency in their reputation is what makes them reliable to me. Now, does everybody bat 1,000? Lane said, every time you step up to bat, you're just hurting your batting average, okay? Because not everyone's going to hit a home run, so no one's batting 1,000. But that's where we go back to the nuances. Just because he was reliable for this stream of information may not mean that he's reliable or she's reliable for this other stream of information. And so we have to be nuanced, but it can't be like, well, I watch Fox News and I watch, Newsmax, or I watch and so we know everything on TV is bullshit at this point. We know that social media covers more unbiased news than the news channels, right? Everybody knows that, especially Gen Z and all you younger gens know that. So find it, man. Pick people that you like, check their facts, and if they show you receipts, check those. And over time, you're going to build yourself or curate yourself people who you can rely on. And then you also can tell when they turn. Charlie Kirk is a perfect example. Okay, it was a big topic that he was starting to turn on. Anyway, I think
Here's a quote, Kawa, on that. Old quote from Denzel Washington, a famous little snippet that he said, "If you don't read the newspaper, you're uninformed. If you do read it, you're misinformed. In our society now, it's just first. Who cares? Get it out there. We don't care who it hurts. We don't care who we destroy. We don't care if it's true. Just say it, sell it. Anything you practice, you'll get good at, including BS." And that was a live quote that he was asked on like a red carpet. And I thought it was really good and representative of our media these days.
That kind of goes back to that question about personality or whatever it was, policy or personality. My little short take on that is I think personality always dominates the first impression on people versus your policy. If people can just listen to your voice and they're like, oh man, I like the way this guy sounds. One, he's confident. Two, he sounds informed. And three, he's saying the right things. You're not even digging into their policies. You're already like, whoa, I like this guy. I like this guy. Already he's drawing you in. So by the time you get to his policies, you might already be in love with him, right? That's why certain people fall in love with Trump, because he's so unfiltered, so real and raw and this and that, when he's full of his own shit in his own way. And that's why so many people were in love with Obama, because he's such an elegant speaker. He's well-groomed, no, dude, he was full of bullshit too. So maybe personality is what draws us on initially, but it's like when you like that chick or you like that dude in your gym, you're like, well, I like how she looks, but now I need to get to know her. You know what I mean? Is she just as good on the inside as she is on the outside? And that's it. We gotta dig deep on people's policies, bro. We just can't be like in love with what they say, not the superficial shit. When Trump says something like, all these brown people are rapists and and then people are like, yeah, fuck the brown people. Like what? Like all he's doing is he's literally giving you the candy, and you're just taking it without, and that's the wrong answer, in my opinion. But that goes for both sides. Well, I know we.
Well, guys, my outro real quick will be that we haven't been around in almost 2 months. So obviously I know I had a baby, and I used to be able to just come sit at my computer when I wanted to, and now I got to act like all responsible and stuff. But yeah, we welcomed.
Are we just gonna do lives from now on, or are we gonna do
Well,
stuff?
I think it comes down to, and I think we'll see with the audience. We only, we had 8 to 12 viewers throughout this. The difference is obviously for the audience is when we do pre-recorded. Our friend Cal is a smart one here. The media inclined person, given his history on social media and editing videos, but it puts a multiple hours, multiple day effort to edit those versus a live. We can kind of go free form, talk about it. And maybe we don't have a lot of artifacts posted in the video, but this then posts to our YouTube page so people can still watch it later. So that was the idea behind this. Y'all let us know what you think in the comments once this posts on our page afterwards if you weren't live with us. And if you think the live content's better and more free flowing, and we're definitely all over the place because obviously we haven't done this in a while. Or if you prefer the pre-recorded stuff, we'll try to get back on a cadence where we can record and then edit and get it going.
Well, yeah, I would like to do a mixture of both. I like the live. I mean, there's nothing better than being live with people. And I think that this audience will grow over time. And I apologize in the beginning of this. I kind of soloed it, but even then I kind of had to fix some of the stuff. But now I think, I don't know, you kind of like this little overlay that we got laid? I think it's pretty.
Dude, I was like, when I clicked in, I was like, dang, look, Al, he's got it all set it up and everything.
It looks pretty clean. I mean, it's not, but I think we can do it. Look, if you guys are an editor and you guys know how to work like Adobe Premiere and you want to, volunteer your time to edit our podcast, please,
Yeah.
you just get a hold of me or Lane. we would love for you guys to. Yeah, because that's what it is. We want to get back to a weekly debrief because that's what it's supposed to be. But
And
I
if you
think
don't, you've missed out on so much news that you can't catch up.
yeah, right, yeah. There's nowhere else to go for news but us. And also maybe we'll have a mixture of pre-recorded and these kind of lives, Lane, but we'll try to keep the weekly consistency because well, there's a lot of stuff.
Sounds good.
Uh,
Well,
but
Rosa, it was great seeing you, brother. Just for the audience, Rosa.
Yeah.
Rosa's in the chat. He served with us almost, 20 plus years ago, going on 15, 16 years ago. Super cool, dude. Good
That
to
was
see.
my short stint in the Army with these guys in 2006, I think.
Yeah, man, that's crazy.
Yeah.
We miss you, brother. Hope all is well.
Hope you're good, Rosa. Yeah, man. All right, guys. Appreciate you guys tuning in. We'll see you guys next time. And Lane, anything else?
That's good, man. Hey, God bless you guys and hope all is well. Take care of your family. Yep. Subscribe, thumbs up, likes.
Patience, all that good stuff. And we'll see you guys next time. Cheers.
Later.